with no sun to follow. The light was growing dim, even though I knew it was only early afternoon. When I glanced back, I could see the head popping out from behind a tree. Every time I looked, it was a little bit closer. I glanced down at the ground and realized I could no longer see the trail of blood. I stopped and hid behind a tree. My eyes darted left and right, looking for the blood trail that would lead me back to the relative safety of the ruined truck. As I stood there, mind racing, trying to figure out what to do, I heard a soft footstep approach the other side of the tree. I smelled the scent of wet animal and heard sniffing, then a soft growl. I dug my fingernails into the tree as a yellow river ran down the inside of my jeans. I stood as still as possible as the sniffing intensified. I could feel the wind and smell the stench of death from its breath. As it stepped to the front of the tree, I heard a low rumble. I wondered when its last meal had been, knowing full well that I would be its next. My body shook from head to toe as the creature stood 2 feet in front of me and looked me up and down. All I could do was watch in horror as it picked the choicest cuts of meat it would devour first. I looked back at this thing, this monster whose name I would never utter, even if by some miracle I made it out of here alive. To say the name invited ridicule and the potential of an involuntary visit to places like Sunnyside Mental Institute, depending on how vehemently you defend your sighting. It was easily 8 feet tall and covered in brown hair. Its eyes pierced into my soul, freezing me to the marrow. Its mouth was slightly open, and I could see the fangs inside. As my eyes went from top to bottom, I saw the claws at the end of its massive arms. When I got to its waist, I saw a dark spot that had congealed blood. I knew that was where I'd hit it. Seeing my eyes linger there, it let out a menacing growl. I knew my life was over. There was nothing I could do about it. It drew its massive arm back. I closed my eyes and waited for the inevitable. The sky exploded with light, followed by a boom and rumble that sounded like a bomb had gone off. It looked to the sky, and when it looked back, I was gone. I gave up on trying to be hard to notice and ran with all my might. I ran like a man possessed, like I was running for my life, which I knew I was. I was running blind. I had no idea which way the road or the truck was when I heard an engine sound to my left. I zeroed in on it and ran in that direction as I heard the truck driving away. The sky was dark enough that I could barely see the trees in front of me to avoid running into them. Another flash came across the sky and lit up my path for a moment. Then the thunder crashed, just as loud as the last. The engine roared as it seemed to struggle, but I could hear it disappearing into the distance. I broke out of the trees so suddenly I nearly fell. I ran up to the road, and my truck was gone. How could anyone have driven it away? Did they load it on a rollback and leave me for dead? As I stared at the road, I saw it in the distance. The truck was still there. I was just behind it. I ran for it as fast as I could, and as I got closer, I could see the back was open and the parts were gone. Someone must have taken them in their own truck and hurried away. I was more worried about staying alive now than some piece of shit human who decided to take advantage of my situation by stealing. I closed and latched the back of the truck as the rain pelted me. Then, I ran around and jumped in the cab, locking the door. I had just taken a breath when the creature stood at my driver's side window, breathing hard and fogging it up. For an absurd moment, I felt like I was safe from it in the truck. That moment disappeared when it broke the glass and reached in for me. I dove into the space between the seats and climbed through the door that led into the cargo area. I slammed the door shut and backed as far away from it as possible. I could hear the cab being ripped to pieces as glass shattered and thumps resounded through the cargo area. And then it stopped. As much as the crashing terrified me, the silence was worse. At least, when there's sound, even terrible sound, I knew where it was coming from. With silence, I had no idea. I sat curled up in the fetal position, leaning against the corner of the truck, hugging my knees and waiting. The rain pounded on the roof, giving me a sense of ease and a sense of dread at the same time. The rain was something normal in my life that had been turned upside down ever since I had stepped into the woods. But it also muffled the movements of the creature that I was sure was lurking outside, waiting for its chance to get me. My adrenaline crashed, leaving me feeling worn out. My clothes were soaking wet from rain, sweat, and other bodily emissions. All I wanted to do was lay down and pray for help. I felt the impact as much as I heard it. Then it happened again and again. The creature was pounding on the side of the truck. I could barely see because of the storm. The roof of the truck was fiberglass, which allowed some light in, but with the storm, it was nearly dark outside, which meant it was nearly dark inside as well. Even still, I could see the wall of the truck denting inward with every impact. I wondered how long it would take the pounding before it collapsed. As I wondered at the cheery thought of my only shelter being destroyed by a crazed cryptid, the pounding stopped. Dreadful silence reigned once again, punctuated only by the rain. I didn't dare close my eyes, no matter how tired I was. The truck started rocking side to side. It rocked so hard that the wheels came off the ground on the driver's side. Then it rocked back, and the wheels came off the ground on the passenger's side. It was trying to flip the truck, and was about to succeed. I was getting thrown around like a rag doll. After a few times, it finally achieved its goal. The truck rolled over onto its side. I smashed my head against the ceiling as it crashed down onto the pavement. I slowly got up and felt my aching head. My hand came away red. I was bleeding, but I didn't know how bad. I got out my phone, that thankfully only had a cracked screen, and took a selfie. I looked at the picture and saw the gash on my forehead. For a moment, I panicked, then ripped a piece of my shirt and made a makeshift headband to try to staunch the bleeding. Either the smell of blood or the triumph of having flipped the truck made the creature bash the truck even more. It attacked the roll-up door. Then it went after the undercarriage. I was waiting for the fateful moment when it went after the roof, which was easily the weakest part of the truck. But it never did. It got to the front of the truck and stopped. One look in that direction told me why. The door between the seats that led from the cab to the cargo area was open. It had slid off when the truck was rocking and smashed. I looked out straight into the eyes of the creature. I sat still, hoping it couldn't see me in the dark cargo area. Its eyes searched for a long moment, then disappeared. I breathed a sigh of relief until I heard it climbing up the side of the truck. My mind went into overdrive. I knew it had smashed the driver's side window, but wasn't sure about the passenger side. As I thought this, I heard the passenger side window break. I knew it was climbing in to find me. I knew I was dead. I slid quietly over to the floor side of the cargo area, all the way to the back door. I knew it was darker than the roof side. I made sure my phone was in my pocket, so no light would shine, and I curled up as small as I could. I had just gotten settled when I saw its head peek in through the door. Its eyes searched the back slowly, scanning back and forth. Just when I thought it was satisfied I wasn't here, it stopped. Its eyes stared straight at me. It started climbing through the door, but was struggling to fit in. It put one arm through, then the other, and squeezed in up to its hips. When it scraped the injured hip against the side, it roared in pain. I'd never heard anything that loud or terrifying. It was pushing through the pain to get to me when I saw flashing lights. I thought I was hallucinating when I noticed it had seen them too. It disappeared through the opening. I stayed where I was, in shock, hoping it wasn't pulling another trick or going around to the back to rip open the rolling door. The flashing lights continued, and I felt the truck move as it climbed back up and into the cab again. Suddenly, there was a light, shining in my face. "Are you all right?" I heard a voice say. I held up my hand to block the light and try to see who was talking. He turned the light on himself